recovering from CES and digging into the hottest news post-show. Will iPhones get their performance back after the battery throttling scandal? Will we ever see a real consumer release for Razer's Project Linda? And just what the heck is LG doing with their future phone lineup? We've got a lot to talk about, so make sure you're charged and ready for episode 288 of the Pocketnow Weekly. Recorded January 19th at noon Pacific, this weekly podcast is where we dissect and discuss those gadgets that make our lives mobile, smartphones, tablets, and wearables. It's all the stuff you wished existed when you were a kid, and trying to talk about a Razer phone wasn't a who's on first style exercise of sorting out different manufacturers. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, senior editor at PocketNow.com, joined as always by plucky podcast producer Mr. Jules Wong on the East Coast. How's it going, buddy boy?
Well, don't mind me. I'm just looking at XML text, wondering what the heck is going on with my webpage here. But that's just going.
We always strive to bring you the most attentive and conscientious podcast we can, while also sorting out the back end code on all of the fires that are happening around us on the internet.
It's just wondering who the hell is talking about which story here and why the stories are not popping up. That's the key. I mean, I post the freaking rundown, 2 hours in advance, and I would hope to have all this sorted out, but instead,
it's just, but why have things well prepped? We can just wing it. We'll do it live. Do it live.
Apparently Java SE runtime now wants to install itself, and it's great.
Well, I am always a big fan of the Java SE runtime.
I have a new computer over here. I could do away with this, but I need to get prepped. I need the time to get it prepped.
We actually got Jules to Flingy in the first 2 minutes of the podcast, but I want to jump back in, do just like kind of a little CES recap on our own. I know you guys were able to produce a live show from the show floor. I wasn't able to join you this year for that, but some of the other cool things that we saw from CES and just some of the fun that you guys had run around and covering some mobile stuff. Jules, what were some of your favorite finds at CES this year?
I had no favorites. If you saw the video that Jaime put together after our podcast with the Mobile Tech Podcast, Miriam Jordan and the group there, you would have you wouldn't have able to have seen the first take, in which I was just all generic and like, oh, this is my first big trade show and I'm super excited for it.
I mean, you were stepping up to the big show this year. They were doing the videos and putting you on the cameras. And
you have to choose a favorite product. You have to choose the best product. You can't just you have to say this is the definitive thing. And I reluctantly chose Project Gemini, which I think that's going to be one of the things to watch for, but not necessarily my favorite. I didn't really get to explore the show floor more than just what the heck is going on with this video or that video. I mean, and if I did, nothing really caught my eye. And I was thinking all throughout this time, like, one of these things is going to catch my eye. And really,
you never found it? This song is dedicated to a man who just didn't see anything cool today. Or like as Jules becomes Cameron to my Ferris Bueller. I mean, but the nice thing about CES is that you'll also catch some cool experimental stuff. I saw the video that Jaime put together on some of the crowdfunded initiatives that companies were showing off on the show floor. Yeah. And you didn't even catch anything wacky and anything cool. Like, did you see the Star Wars?
Would we want to go to like ping pong robot? That
ping pong robot was awesome. I thought that was great.
It's great. It's just, it's not for sale, and it's not our purview. I can't like turn on an app and get this robot.
Well, okay, if we're going to keep things more focused on mobile, because this is the Pocketnow podcast, there were a couple extra things that I saw on the show floor that I thought were a lot of fun. My experiment for CES, for my personal stuff, was to see if I could cut daily vlogs all from my phone. So recording all the video, doing all the editing, the rendering, the uploading, 4K videos. And I constructed a mobile rig with a Gorilla Pod and a base plate and a job.
Count and weight.
I mean, like, I really tried to make it as pro as possible to try and get the best. I had a LumaCube to do all the lighting, and that was my big experiment, and it worked way better than I thought it would have. In fact, I don't feel it really slowed me down a lot for doing quick and punchy vlogs. Because we're always trying to put out like, extra little side content or, Instagram stories or something. We're always trying to kind of keep the story moving throughout social media and in video.
Upload speeds never managed above 3 megabits per second.
Well, I don't. In our hotel room, it took a long time to upload 4K video vlogs from my phone. But I mean, again, that would have taken me the same amount of time from a laptop as from a phone. I mean, like everything still seemed to work just about as quickly as if I had done it all from my laptop. And so there were a couple of things on the show floor that I felt were really exciting for mobile production. So, looking at the Osmo 2, the new DJI handheld gimbal, it looks like a nice refinement over the first Osmo, the first series of Osmo gimbals, but really it's the price point. Seeing them clean up the product a little bit, give it a slightly bigger battery, even though now it's not removable, but now it's $130.
$130. Yeah, that was a crazy thing.
That was insane to see that. And I, this is one of the top names in sort of consumer facing video stabilizers, gimbals, that kind of a thing. Like the quality of video you
all
can
the
get
drones that they do, and yeah, that's crazy. It's just crazy.
And alongside that, I think for the back end workflow, because you guys got to see the new Asus phones, right? You spent a little time with the new Zen phones.
That was like, it had a big battery, and it's like the mid range, everything that 2017 brought, kind of thing.
Totally. Well, and again, I think Asus is still trying to play that price war, but one of the things that blew me away at the Asus suite was the ZenScreen Go. It's a mini portable, professionally calibrated monitor that it's all powered off of USB-C, and it has its own battery too, so it won't drain your other products. So you plug it into a laptop, and it shows up as a second screen. But I plugged on their demo unit, which is still a prototype. It's not even a finished commercial release yet. It's going to be coming out Q3. I plugged my phone into it, and it instantly screen mirrored without having to do any other apps or drivers or anything. So I fired up my video editing software on my phone, had this amazing display to see what I was doing. And like they're saying that the price point on that's probably going to be between sub $400 is what they said. So in that $300 to $350, where, I mean, we're going to be talking about Project Linda a little later in the show, an all-rounder, professional-grade, calibrated monitor.
It's just a monitor, right?
It's just a monitor, and no touchscreen. But you want the larger workspace, and you want a bigger field of view to look at, that it works with everything, and it's a one cable connection is a really exciting idea to me. Like something like that could be a huge benefit for people who are trying to work on the go.
Yeah, I can see definitely has its uses for the mobile production suite. And it's just one of those things I feel like that could, I'm not sure. Well, maybe it could make things more fun. Now, it's always about efficiency and about, just getting things quick done and as well wrapped together as, possible for a mobile setup. But yeah, I'm not sure if this will make things fun necessarily, because it's another piece of equipment that you have to lug around. Even though it's like, good for the size, it's still another thing.
Right. But what I'm looking at is we've got a number of companies experimenting with changing form factors. Like Project Linda is a great example of a proprietary solution which works for one phone to give you a bigger workspace. And something like this where, you would have been carrying around like a tablet in addition to a phone, and now you can blow up this work experience. Or you have a work laptop and you want a secondary screen, a second monitor to go with that laptop. You don't have to cart a TV sized device just for extra workspace. Like you just want to keep your video output on that so you can work your timeline on your main computer, or you want all your plugins if you're editing photos just all off on one little screen so you don't interrupt the bigger display on your laptop. There are fun applications, like you can watch movies better, you can see your video on a bigger screen if you're using it with a phone. But for me, this is a productivity dream, is to have this modular, portable, universal accessible monitor, which I thought was just extremely well done.
And yeah, I mean, as long as I don't have to check bags at the airport, because these
but you still don't have to pull for a tablet. So if you added this screen and a phone, technically. Well, I guess now you do.
I mean, it's a
Never
shared,
mind.
give or take.
Depends on how you're
The
flying out.
tablet
Yeah.
has its own OS system, but then again, just having one thing power the whole, setup is kind of cool. But in any case, I think that is definitely something to be appreciated, and we'll talk more about that when we get to Project Linda in the news. How about that?
Definitely. I got
Let's
a couple other
talk
things I
about
thought were kind of cool. I'm gonna throw them out there real fast. Garmin
success
Speak.
things. Garmin Speak.
Garmin Speak. I'm super stoked about this. I live in California. Every time I get behind the wheel of the car, I feel like I'm taking my life into my hands. It's a little dash
Is that
camera.
Simon Says, but better?
Well, it's a little dash camera, and I'm kind of holding up my fingers here because it is about the circumference that I'm kind of showing right here. Sticks up under your rear view mirror, and it will give your car lane guidance and accident collision detection. So if you don't have those things already built into your car, it's going to give you that. It's got a dash camera built in, so if anything happens, you've got a DVR of all of your driving. That's great. And it's got a tiny, super simple heads up display that tells you how fast you're going and gives you very simple turn by turn. Simple forward arrow, left arrow, right arrow, and distance to your next turn. And for the newest version this year, they've incorporated Amazon Alexa. So you can also ask it, while you're driving, like, hey, what's my next appointment? Or hey, what's going on in my schedule? Or, play the Seinfeld trivia game with me,
It's the
Alexa.
all-in-one car assistant that people have been wanting out of their smart speakers at home.
$200. $200, and it brings some of that smart speaker stuff into your car. It gives you a heads up display that you can keep at eye level, so you don't have to look
all those
down.
heads-up displays, then eventually you'll be like wondering if you could speed run the 405 in like record time or games done quickly.
Californians know you can never speed run the 405. It's always bumper to bumper. And then the last thing, something that I'm playing with right now, I'll be getting a review out on this shortly. Years ago, I did a review on a product called the Backtrack Mobile, and it's a portable Bluetooth police grade breathalyzer that connects to your phone. And this year, the company showed off two new products. One is a keychain sized version of the Backtrack Mobile. This is the Backtrack C6, and then later this year, they're going to be releasing a skin sensor. So it reads the alcohol content of the sweat in your skin, and you can wear it like its own standalone wearable if you want to wear it like a fitness band, but it's actually designed to replace the watch strap on your smartwatch. So you have an Apple Watch, you can keep a sensor on your wrist, super discreet. You never have to show it off, or no one will ever know what it is. And all the time, it's going to sit there and monitor the blood alcohol content of your sweat, so you can get a real-time glimpse of just what your level of intoxication is throughout the evening. Phenomenal, like, piece of lifestyle tech, because this kind of stuff is dangerous. We're seeing rates of DUI over the last year have actually increased. So even with Uber and Lyft and taxis getting cool apps, there are more people getting behind the wheel inebriated than there were in years past. And so something like this, I think, can be a very valuable piece of information for people that are looking to have a good time, but are also looking to try and do that safely.
Self-empowerment in terms of drunk driving, I think I'm not sure how I feel about that. I just, if I'm going to drink, I'm just going to take the subway home or get a Lyft anyways, because I don't drive at all.
That's well, yeah. I mean, that's a part of it for you. I'm not saying that you were going to want to do this, but I actually, for two of the parties that we were at for wrapping up CES, I was walking around with this thing, and it is kind of interesting. Like, the first time someone sees you blow into a breathalyzer in public, there's kind of standoffishness of like, what's this guy's got problems? Why is he walking around with a breathalyzer? But with these little interchangeable tips so that you can like hygienically pass it around, it became sort of the fun party game of like, just how inebriated am I?
I was about to say, spin the bottle, man. That's
a little bit, you clean it off. Alcohol's a disinfectant. It's fine. You'll be fine. Pass it around. But that's one of the things, like, once you kind of take the stigma off of it, it's just really interesting to check in, because I think a lot of people know about how many drinks they can handle if they have experience with alcohol, but they might not know how many drinks will actually put them over the legal limit. And so in a car heavy state, it's always kind of gross and insidious that in California, you kind of can't get anywhere unless you're driving. So I don't go out at night and hang out at bars because I'll have my car. And, like I'm gonna have a couple drinks and then get back in my car, or I'm always having to hitch a Lyft or an Uber or something like that. So again, products like this I feel are just really nice lifestyle adaptations that people can use. And this is the newest version of it is not that expensive. This thing retails for $50. So the C6, it's about the same size as the clicker for my condo gate, and it works surprisingly well. So I've been very impressed with this company. I think they're making some great lifestyle products.
Instead of like $50 every night, you want to like hire a DD or something. I don't know.
But I mean, it just adds to the discussion, and it also gives you a little bit of insight. Like I have a really good idea now of like how many bourbons I can drink before I'm going to be running into problems, or it's not just I'm taking a guess at, well, I weigh about 170 pounds and I don't know, this drink is like 80 proof. So if I have 2 of those, then maybe I'll be, no. Don't mess with that. Don't try and guess what your BAC is. There are some good products out there that I think can help people out.
I mean, don't be like me that that got this like very nasty little bruise on the elbow because not because I was drinking, but because apparently there's this hotel that doesn't know how to bolt down its pool railings correctly. So
awesome. And so did you throw a fit about like liability? I'm gonna call my lawyer.
I got to take away a bathrobe and yeah, that covered it up.
Oh, Better Call Saul would be so disappointed in you right now. I think those are some of the fun other products that I saw at CES. There were a ton of really crazy things, especially checking out CES for gaming gear and PC hardware building and stuff like that. So CES is really known for, but there were some really fun lifestyle, companion devices. Not always the most exciting show for phones, but I thought I saw some really cool services that we can now start doing more cool stuff with our phones and with our mobile apps and services.
Yeah, more lifestyle, less strife style.
Yeah, we're totally going to make that a t-shirt for the show. We've got our Pocketnow merch. Yeah.
Right now, hashtag merch, hashtag brands. It's $50 at pocketnow.com. Not really.
Hashtag Juan and Jules Paul. We're going to now fly to Japan and...
Let's not go there. I'm going to stop
you. Instead of doing that, we should talk about some news.
For the week of January 15, 2018, this is all the news that is fit to podcast. Apple had a huge bonanza this week with the announcement of a $350 billion capital plan for the next 5 years, thanks to the recent reforms in corporate tax rates in the United States. One of the other pieces of news that CEO Tim Cook made in an interview with ABC News revolves around the throttling controversy for older iPhones. He said that users will soon be able to toggle the throttling off through software with a future update. The behavior was put into place to prevent battery malfunctions and device shutdowns. Google's Fuchsia OS got put into a Pixelbook in a semi-working state in terms of interface by Ars Technica, though the application's picture is still far from finished. The Pixelbook has been in works for about 3 years now, and was one of Fuchsia OS has been in the works for 3 years now. The Pixelbook was one of several Intel-based test beds for the experimental OS that is to work on phone, tablet, and laptop platforms. Of upcoming Motorola phones has run on Droid Life, detailing devices in the Moto G6, Moto X5, and Moto Z3 series. All of them have come up with 2-by-1 displays, and some of them have intriguing things going on with the fingerprint sensor. We'll get into the nitty-gritty later on. Project Fi is introducing bill protection, a feature that caps the bill amount depending on how many users there are on an account. An individual will be charged on a prorated basis up through 6 gigabytes of usage, and then will have free access at full speed up through 15 gigabytes. The user can then choose to pay for more full speed data or stay with slower data for free. through the end of the month. Razer could launch the Project Linda smartphone laptop hybrid with a Razer Phone sequel in September. That news coming from a source for Android. Linda debuted at CES as the latest in many concepts that have yet to go on sale from Razer worldwide. It could cement Razer's involvement in mobile. And finally, Huawei has published a video promoting a fast charge technology that can pump a smartphone battery up to 48% capacity in 5 minutes. The only problem? The video was first seen at a symposium in 2015, back when removable batteries were more popular in phones, and that's what this technology is predicated on. We've yet to suss out a reason why the video has been remixed and republished. You got any guesses why?
Guesses as to why? No, but that definitely seems to be something that is, again, a part of the current zeitgeist. You know, the Apple story, battery health, battery longevity, and then no more flagships with removable batteries is something that I think people care about. So I think it's just like revisiting a concept or revisiting an idea that is resonating right now.
I mean, we can make it cool again. We can like start talking about and getting all like the social armies riled up, and maybe
but again, I think any company, and Huawei especially, they're the number 3 in the world. Anything that a company can do to act as a differentiator is a good marketing tactic right now. You know, the difficulties that we're seeing from manufacturers like LG and HTC. Huawei doesn't want to just coast on their current market penetration. They want to see if they can't build on their fan base, and so
they want to do it in a wow way.
Wow way. Yeah, totally. That's I apologize profusely to our friends at Huawei.
I mean, that's their own.
It's a talking point that people care about right now. Like, what's going on with the battery in my phone? And I think their timing on this is right to revisit this as an idea.
Yeah, indeed. Well, that and introducing Gal Gadot
from Samsung, right? The whole graphene ball fast charging tech. There are going to be some competing solutions to fast charging coming on the horizon very, very soon.
Aren't out right now, and there would be more news to be made out of this because they'd be promoting the heck out of it. But I mean, that's then and this is now, so I still want my graphene balls. Let's talk about some other things, such as Apple, who is very big week for them. They're going to pay billions and billions in repatriation taxes, and also apparently you're not going to see a cheaper iPhone just because they got all these savings. One of the economic trains of thought is that if they get tax savings in any ways, that will pass on to the consumers. But instead, we're just being told that innovation costs what innovation costs. So there you go. You get that. Oh yeah, and that's right. Batteries.
Well, I think that's definitely one of the bigger nice stories coming out of this is better disclosure. Again, Apple got burned because there was confusion surrounding this topic, and there wasn't the kind of transparency that people expect now with one of the most mission critical lifestyle companion devices that they carry. It was a very bad look for Apple for them to be monkeying around with the performance of these devices. It brings up a whole new conversation on things like what should a premium smartphone contain to offset some of the ways that a smartphone can age. Like if we activate the full power of an iPhone and after a year that can cause system instability, then I think it's on Apple to put in a bigger battery so that there's a buffer zone as the phone ages and that battery degrades. I don't think it's sufficient to say your $700, $800, $900,000 smartphone has the bare minimum capacity to drive the CPU at full power for 6 months. Like, that's not okay. But at least now consumers have a little bit better transparency on what's actually going on with their phones. So
it's an active disclosure that comes out of a lack of disclosure, and now they're trying to make sure
they got caught.
They got caught. Now they're trying to cover their bases, and who knows what else they might be hiding in the next kind of barrier in this race. So I mean,
we'll see.
Whatever.
A lot of ugh. But I mean, getting onto the other sort of political issues too, giving employees bonuses, that's nice. Them
$2,500
repatriating
in stock.
in stock, that's
Yeah.
cool. I'm happy to see that, and I'm happy to see that they're one of the few companies that made a big announcement out of giving their employees bonuses and not then going on to lay off hundreds or thousands of their employees.
They didn't even announce it. Like some source inside the company passed on an email to
Right.
Bloomberg, and then they had to confirm it with Apple. So it's like, yeah,
But
they're
all too
doing
often
their own
it's
thing.
been, who was it? Wasn't Verizon one of the first? Like, hey, we're gonna give all of our employees bonuses because of this new tax plan,
TNT
and we're
and
gonna fire
Comcast.
1,000 of them.
Yeah. So I mean, and right before the holidays, whereas this, it's just
Yeah.
after the holidays, and none of the seasonal impacts are coming into play. So, I mean, they could justify it as something that was part of the average yearly cycle for jobs, but that doesn't take away from the sweet irony from it. So,
Yeah, and again, a bad look for a company like that. So
and
hopefully, this is an
yeah,
Apple who's going to participate better, an Apple that's actually going to pay their taxes and do business in a way that's a little bit more upfront, a little bit more transparency, a little bit more clarity as to what they're doing. That to me, out of all of this, that would be a positive ramification of some of these changes.
well, as the world's largest corporation, having that discount from 35% to 15.5% on the repatriation rates,
Right.
when you're talking about $252 billion, it's still a lot, but
It is galling that they held their taxes hostage until they got a better rate. Like, I don't think that's an Apple I would want to do business with. I don't think that's an Apple that still qualifies as us cherishing it as an American company. But this is a step towards, I hope, a better relationship between how these monies are sort of extracted from this country and then paid back into the system so that everyone can benefit.
do the math. That leaves on that's like $245 billion going back in, with like 7 billions left for regional just maintaining the businesses outside of the US, which is fine and all, but when you put this as part of the overall view with the $350 billion, you're going to lots of data centers, to a lot of new facilities, including, I think, is one in Reno, Nevada. Another there, it could. I'm not sure if this is the one that was unannounced still or something entirely separate, but one in Culver City, near Hollywood, because they're getting into more of the media play with original series and stuff, and they're doing a lot of money just to see. I'm not sure if that's part of like the capital plan or the investment plan in the United States to make it great again or whatever, but
I like, the one thing I can be fairly confident as is Apple with Tim Cook at the head. I don't think they're too MAGA. I don't think they're. I don't think this is a company that's
they do
looking
have to admit that
appease the current administration.
corporate tax reform for them, Tim Cook said it benefits them, and
It
it's
does.
helping them create jobs, 20,000 up to 20,000 at least.
Well, and
So
and again,
we'll
I'll
have to hold
I'll,
them
I'll
to.
or not that a corporate tax rate is also being appropriately paid, because I mean we went through the same thing with Apple migrating to the EU to Ireland as a tax haven and then still not paying the EU what they thought the tax bill should be. This is coming in from Renato Laporte using the PN Weekly hashtag. Renato writes, IMO, it should contain a warranty. If you
The
buy a
battery issue, yeah.
$600 phone, talking about the battery, if you buy a $600 phone, you expect it to run okay for a long while. Yeah, the battery won't last the same as the first day, but if it's affecting performance after 1 year, replacement should be free. And I think a lot of people would probably agree, but this is also one of the ways that Apple was able, I feel, to build a larger profit margin into their phones is the bare minimum battery for the smaller iPhone to get you through the day. But as that battery degrades, you have zero buffer room. You have zero room to lose battery capacity and total power output, which is necessary to drive a powerful CPU and GPU at their max rates.
One starts to question whether that $29 replacement fee for the battery, usually $79, should be considered more of a built-in price instead of just some accessory kind of deal of service.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, and it's tough to unravel because these are also priced at the premium end of the market. So what are our expectations and what should we demand from a company? But switching gears, because I also really want to jump into this one, the article written up on Fuchsia. We talked about this a couple
Fuchsia.
months back. The potential successor to Android or Chrome OS. We weren't really sure. It was more of an experimental project, but seeing more and more development working on this, and that it's already being tested on current hardware solutions, is a positive step towards a Google, an Android, a Chrome OS merge. The ability to compete more readily against other operating system solutions and kind of drive consumer mobile products into a smoother, faster, more streamlined development cycle.
I mean, it's still way in early days because what will make
Totally.
this platform are the apps, and there are supposedly many bridges to codes like Swift, which originally was at Apple, but the creator has moved to Google. So that's an interesting move, as well as Kotlin and all these others that Google's cooking up, and the standard languages as well, Java and the like. So yeah, in terms of working all those into like a single design paradigm, whether material design gets carried over in the future, I mean, that's and how all these link up, interact, and provide services to the user. That's going to be an interesting path forward going. But in terms of the interface, I mean, it's for me, it's intuitive, it's simple, it's clean, it's what
Mhm.
I've always wanted in terms of just a mobile workstation. So props so far, at least. The
Yeah, it
look is
looks
great.
really pretty.
Yeah. So if you and we'll just do a little painting by sound here. So at the lock screen, you type in the lock screen, and it's obviously integrated into Google. You would get your account information like that. The home screen, you got your wallpaper, you got central Fuchsia button, which to the sides of it, you got all the data, the information, about network connectivity, time, device status, whatnot. At the bottom, you're going to find a familiar Google bar with the feed below it with all the cards, the information that you need. And then as you get into apps, as you find your way in, of the apps, they'll be piled on top of the information bar. So you can just go back to them whenever you want. So I mean, it feels intuitive to me at
Yeah, I
least.
mean, really nice considerations on kind of building on the user interface and user experience that we all kind of understand at this point. It'll definitely be a stray away from just the Android ecosystem that we totally understand today, but not so much so that I think it's going to be detrimental. Ultimately, though, I still think this is probably Google's best hope for rectifying some of the problems on things like updates. We recently went through all the stories about Meltdown and Spectre. Those are hardware issues. Patches can fix some of the security holes from some of these issues, but if we expect people to continuously live more and more of their daily lives, their personal information, their banking information, their medical information out of mobile devices, we need an update path, which is better than what Google currently has with them putting out new software for Android, it going to a manufacturer who then tweaks it then going to a carrier who then tweaks it, and eventually getting delivered to consumers months, maybe even a year after that update was actually released from the developers. So if Fuchsia can get on top of that timeline in a more iOS fashion, then that to me will be the biggest win. I know there will be app teething pains, but it's becoming a bigger and bigger deal that people are not really getting the support they pay for with mobile devices.
So what Ars Technica, which did the whole testing article, says, can't even say the guy's name, Ron Amadeo
Easy for you to say.
speculates is that there would not be a physical install medium, and therefore in my opinion, there would not be the benchmark, the version that Google would use. So I'm not sure whether there is more room for OEMs to play around with Fuchsia, but we'll have to see. It's still far off. We're still years away from any final workings to this. So, but it's definitely interesting to just keep tabs on this.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely something also worth keeping tabs on. Real quick, Moto Z3. What do you think? Modular phones, the completion of the Moto Z experiment. They also leaked along with the other Moto X and Moto E series phones. What I really like Moto's entry and mid-range strategy. I'm still not quite sure they found the killer niche or the killer app to get people excited about their flagships.
No, not yet. I mean, just the single slide that we found on the one of the highlight moto mods for the Z3, which is a 5G attachment.
Mhm.
Supposedly, or we could infer that basically all these radios don't have, like, the radios that would come on the Moto Z3 or whatnot wouldn't have support for 5G, and this would just be a tack on to allow the phone to support those speeds and those networks and those protocols. But I mean, that's one cool feature that you just get instant faster data
Well,
and
especially
whatnot.
if it could also go all the way back to the Moto Z, like the first one.
I mean,
That would actually be pretty sweet. You have got like a battery backup with a 5G radio array built into
that
it, and you could just slap it on. That would be epic.
that'd be great. I mean, and the use case would practically be like a very small pool, but still, that I mean, just the thought of that, reverse engineering that is just amazing. I'm seeing a different port here instead of like the 16 dots that we're getting at the 16 pin connector at the back.
Hmm.
It's a more kind of abstract, more metallic lozenge line thing at the bottom. It
Yeah.
would it would be able to fit. It would be able to those pins, but I'm not sure if it's exactly the same kind of deal we're working with. I mean, Motorola promised that this would be around, the pin design would be around for at least one more year, so maybe we'll see this be intercompatible.
Well, fingers crossed. And something you don't need to cross your fingers for, real quick, because I want to get to Project Linda, but talking about Project Fi, because I am a Project Fi user.
Mhm.
I thought that was a nice consideration of putting a maximum cap on what you get charged for. I wonder, do you think this is going to make Project Fi more desirable for people who are shopping the various MVNOs out there?
Because here, like, the thing is that price competitiveness after the Sprint T-Mobile thing fell apart, the merger fell apart, has been very, dried up. It's been dried up, and the only thing that Sprint has done, I think, now is started to attempt to go at like switchers again. And it's been forecast by analysts that they wouldn't be doing the whole promotional thing as heavily as they have done in the past. So with competitiveness, I mean, $80 is where we see AT&T, Verizon, and even some T-Mobile plans at this tier, land at. It's right up there. The 15 gigabyte limit, or the throttle point, is kind of low compared to the rest of them, but even still, 256 kilobits per second is something I wouldn't, cut my eyes out for. So
Right.
it's going to be okay. So
I'll be curious
it's
because
the primary line.
I'm looking up T-Mobile right now, and if you because their new one plan is $70 a month for one line, and
But it's
that's it.
basic. I mean, yeah, it's the basic deal that they have.
And so that I
It's
you know
40p streaming. It's like limited hotspot. I'm not
right,
sure if they're
but
hot.
like if we're talking about oh, so if you want, so $70 a line for one line, and if you want unlimited HD streaming, then it's only $10 more, and that also gets you unlimited Wi-Fi on GoGo, enabled flights, slower speeds internationally than what's offered from Project Fi, but it will bump up the speeds to more like 3G speeds in most countries. Um, like that's still at that $80 a month thing, and I think you're having to worry less as you get closer to like a 20 gigabyte cap, where Project Fi is going to stop you at 15. Isn't it 21, 22?
Well, the thing
Oh,
is
it's
that
50 gigabytes a month is
it's
when they
50
will
gigabytes. Yeah,
throttle. people on
T-Mobile has made a
T-Mobile.
big point about just raising that cap because, oh wow, our network is doing so great.
And that would also add in a Netflix subscription.
Yeah, and I mean, there isn't. Yeah, there. I mean, in terms
So
of
I
competing with
like the
services with
Project Fi.
amenities, I mean, T-Mobile also ties you down in terms
Right.
of.
The difference is that you are actually paying $80 a month, whereas Project Fi, you're only paying for what you use. But I just think it's kind of interesting watching where we all kind of end up with at these different dollar amounts. Like, maybe a couple months you are under that $80 cap. If you're a really heavy smartphone user on Project Fi, that could be kind of nice. But if you do a lot of traveling, man, like trying to crunch the numbers and the math on what makes sense for what regions is pretty tricky right now.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I mean, I have no further thoughts since I use Sprint and Project Fi both in the same, usage
Right.
case. So I'm just like, yeah, I can deal with both, and this makes it more affordable for me to use Fi more
But you
often.
just say that so pitifully. I'm with Sprint.
We're one of the last carriers in the U.S. to actually go to 5G, so this is
Right.
going to be a long little wait for us.
You know what? Let's switch gears and talk about something a little more imaginative, a little bit more fun. You
Yes.
guys got to spend some time with Project Linda. I got to spend some time with Project Linda. What'd you think? I thought this was a beautifully polished implementation of an idea we've been trying to achieve since the dawn of pocket computer phones.
Too many moving parts.
You think so? No, seriously. I'm being really serious. Do you think it's too complicated?
And I mean, if with the engineering for the USB-C port, because you connect to the shell. So I mean, you put in your Razer phone because it has to be a Razer phone. It can't just be it. Nicole Scott said that a Pixel 2 XL fit in the pit area,
Mhm.
but it doesn't recognize the shell doesn't
Yeah.
recognize it. So there's that. But you put in your Razer phone, you press the button in order to get that drilling sound and to have the USB-C port, and then you
Yeah.
use it's great in principle. You got just like a 256 gigabyte disk for
Yeah.
extra storage, and another like however much battery there is on the shell, and you get that with the RGB keyboard, and it's nice and fancy. I don't. There's room for Android on this thing. I would much rather prefer it be an AC PC, an always connected thing with Windows.
Really, you think
But
so? You'd want to see a mixed operating system environment, not like what Huawei and Samsung are doing with their screen sharing and DeX technologies?
no, no. I mean, I have more use for Windows apps than Android apps at this point, um, especially given the variety of programs as opposed to just one good program here on Android that you have to really search for the Google Play Store and whatnot. So
I I
more free
I think
environment.
I'm a little bit more positive on this than you are, if only because of my experiment in producing with my phone during CES. Is that mobile apps aren't there yet, but they've gotten so much better at getting me through a huge chunk of what I would use my laptop for that I think there is a consumer today who could benefit from a mobile only approach. And I think that'll only grow over the next couple years because of these innovations in screen sharing, screen mirroring, and making Android recognize different display aspect ratios and resolutions. And
Talking
so,
about that,
I mean, you're not wrong. Having Windows on ARM could be pretty epic. A Qualcomm 845 that can switch back and forth between operating systems could be cool. But I worry that that's going to make, I mean, like, I played with a Windows Android tablet way back in the day, and it was a terrible experience. And I know we could do better.
I'm not talking about dual boot situation. I just want Windows 10 on the thing.
Well, and we all know how Windows phones are going, like
I
the
mean, we don't
Windows
need
mobile
Windows Phone.
experience.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But I mean, come on, if you're going to working between those
Right.
things,
But I mean, like you looking at where like Chrome OS was and looking at where Android is. I mean, from my LG V30, I wrote out scripts in Microsoft Word. I'm using Microsoft Word on a little Bluetooth keyboard. I was able to record high quality audio and edit it on the phone. I was able to keep a timeline with 3 video elements, 5 audio tracks, text transitions, and the ability to mix content. So I was pulling content from 2 different phones, all in 4K, render in 4K, upload that to YouTube, do all of the same like SEO stuff that I need to do on YouTube. And it was all through mobile apps and services. And I think if I had just had more screen real estate to work with, it wouldn't have been that much different. It only would have been slightly less powerful than how I would have used a proper laptop in the same working conditions. Totally wouldn't work for the way that I work out of my office. I'm working from a desktop, a proper workstation. That thing's a monster. I can do so much work there. But on the go, gaming laptop wouldn't have been that much different or that much faster from how I was working from my phone.
I would agree, but I would enjoy doing it more on the gaming laptop as opposed because
Totally.
I took out my essential phone for note taking. I was doing the whole, trying to get the keyboard, and I could do it just as fast as I needed it to. But if I had gotten my Eve V that I got home, and I started typing on the thing, and it was a dream. Like I tried Bluetooth keyboards. I
Right, like
tried
we've seen all of these experiments, like the Asus line, the Pad phone, and the Phone Pad, and the Transformer line of tablets that could then dock into a laptop style keyboard cradle. We've seen Motorola had their lap dock. It was a really awkward. You'd have to plug the phone with an HDMI and a USB port, and then not being able to use the phone for anything because it was plugged into the back of this laptop shell.
all the
Whereas
connections.
Project Linda actually does the one thing I think a lot of us were asking for, where it turns the phone into your trackpad. That, I mean, like I've been asking for that since like the very, very first Android phones were out, the first Droids were out. Just give me something that can connect to this, especially back then, since a lot of there were numerous phones out there that had HDMI ports. So again,
I wonder how haptic's
I
going
don't
to
think
work
it's
is
quite
that.
ready yet. But when you're talking about like, hey, I was using my essential phone to try and write notes, and then it felt so much better to do that on a proper keyboard. Project Linda sounds like the right solution to mix phone and larger screen capabilities.
It does. It does. I don't mean to kill it as a concept. I just mean to, I mean, the software is not there yet for me, at least.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean,
And the thing I would completely agree. I mean, we were talking about this before we went online. I think the thing that I would completely agree with you is also just the notion of it being a proprietary product. It makes me a little
that
nervous with Moto mods. It makes me a little nervous. Like, I'm going to buy a really expensive phone and a really expensive laptop shell. And that's it. That's the one product. It's not going to go anywhere if I try to move to another manufacturer, or even a future phone update from the same manufacturer could still burn me.
well, if it's a shell, then you could do a little bit more engineering with, if it were a matter of size of the phone and just having to cater to that, you could do a spring load thing or something like that. Like that, you can make it universal. So, I mean, it's not just so.
Well, one would hope,
If there's
because
some
that's why I
manufacturer,
was. Oh yeah.
yeah, go ahead. No, some other manufacturer that can take this concept and get it to the patent office quicker than Razer does. Then maybe we have something here, and
Right.
who knows what will happen.
Well, and that takes me back to the top of the show, why I was so excited about Asus. That Zen Screen Go Android phones seem to do a really good job of screen mirroring now in a way that's seamless. One cable connection, USB-C, done, and you're off and running on a larger workspace. And I don't think it would take much to add a keyboard and a trackpad to that environment and have any phone. You would lose touchscreen, I think. I don't know that you'd be able to do this with a touchscreen, but I don't think it would take much to
See it.
engineer a solution that would mirror your screen in a useful way, give you a mouse cursor and a keyboard, and get you off and running. That would then work for any phone that you used with that setup.
Convertible tablets have spoiled me at this point because I don't think I would be able to live with like this here, this laptop, and that doesn't have a touch screen. I'm just like, what the heck? I have to move my mouse all the way over here, and I have to set the sensitivity so it can be fast enough.
Well,
and then oh wait, I can't get I misclicked because it was too sensitive.
I'm telling you, like from working on just like different Windows 8 tablets from back in the day and the Surface, and that's why when I bought my gaming laptop, it was like I need Thunderbolt, I need a higher resolution than 1080p, and I'm not giving up on a touchscreen. And there was only one laptop that fulfilled all those at the time of purchase, which funnily enough was the Razer Blade. So I'm one of those triple snake in the Razer ecosystem kind of guys. While you're pulling that out, we do have a tweet here from Jonas Gamau from PN Weekly, hashtag PN Weekly. Razer Project Linda should have been what Microsoft showcased with Windows 10 Mobile when it was first introduced. And I agree, especially because we saw with the Lumia 950 that Continuum project. I actually found my Continuum dock. I was digging out my Lumia 1020 to do a revisit on the Lumia 1020 camera. And in my Boxo Windows phones, I found my Continuum dock, and it just made me really sad that we hadn't really, that Microsoft gave up so early on ideas that are now becoming really popular. And if they had done that on Qualcomm 820 and Qualcomm 830 hardware, that this stuff would have run so much better than when they introduced it on the Qualcomm 808.
I'm sorry, I'm just paying attention to my EV here and just,
You are digging that thing. So tell the folks at home, and especially those who are listening to our podcast and not watching the video stream, you've been playing with the EV for a little while. Like, was that your?
That was my own. That's my personal purchase. And Jaime is doing a review for Pocketnow, but this is my personal purchase over here. And so far so good. Nice. Again, the keyboard is just the best for me. Like the pitching and the travel are just nice, and getting used to touch screens with a stylus and just regular trackpad. I was able to very much more quickly switch between two different windows and type in different text fields and all that, which I need to do for my job. And it was just like that really has improved my workflow by at least 10-15%. Right. So yeah, I'm just
so far the experiment's been a success. I mean, where would you see something like this fitting into the more traditional like manufacturer ecosystem of Surface clones?
Think about other traditional manufacturers out there. I'm just doing this selfishly and just using it for my own.
Yes,
purpose.
Jules, I understand that, but I'm sure you can comment on whether or not you think that this is the right competitor opposite. Like HP came out with something similar. Dell has had something similar.
I mean, everyone's getting into the
something similar.
The 2-in-1 form factor, and it's up to people's minds to say, hey, I want a tablet, or I want something that has a keyboard and whatnot, or I want an actual laptop that can actually fold out, that stays hinged, but it doesn't work. So I mean, that's to people's preferences. I think the concept of just having a screen as needed is here to stay. And it's just a matter of engineering, just being able to have it available, have it as a choice. Yeah.
So we're getting kind of into the end territory on this podcast, but we do want to spend a little time talking LG. We got a number of tweets from people just talking about the current strategy, walking away from the G series name, maybe releasing phones later in the year. We got a few here. This is from @FatProduce on using the PN Weekly hashtag. Which company do you think will be in a better situation going forward, LG or Sony? Because Sony actually had some stuff to show off at CES. And then also
believe it or not.
with right. And then also following that up with, I wonder if the suits at LG know where their weaknesses really are based on the decisions they are making right now. Huawei had better advertising taglines leading up to CES than LG has had ever. for their phones. And yeah, I think he's trying to make the comment or the observation that maybe the problem isn't with the phone, and it's with how the company is disclosing, announcing, and advertising their products. What do you think, Jules? It seems to me that if a company, a major mainstream manufacturer, were to try and take some risks right now, not just dumping out a new product sounds like the right kind of risk. Maybe taking a step back, reevaluating the market, and not just following lockstep trying to compete against the Galaxy might be a better play than releasing a phone which will continue a trend of not selling as well.
It's not just a matter of competition of time, it's a matter of competition of product. And I wouldn't say that the March release time frame would be the most important thing to go. It would have been nice to have seen just a little mid-range action at the very least, but all we're getting apparently is either first of all a new red color of the V30 at the show. And also this rumor now that there's an AI enhanced V30 coming up at MWC, which, rehash over rehash. That's fun. But
do you think that's a problem? I mean, iPhone users have had the same form factor for 4 generations of iPhone now. Like the V30 is a gorgeous phone. If I could get a V30 next year with just refinements to the camera, a new chipset, and more storage, wouldn't that be?
I think whatever fans that LG has garnered have less patience for that compared to other manufacturers, and that LG's design is not. I mean, it blends in with the rest of them, and with them being a third string, or whatever string they are.
Right, but don't you think it just blends in because people are only apt to encounter an LG phone by happenstance? Like if LG had gotten after the advertising. So LG announced the V30. Then it took weeks. It took like 5 weeks before we had availability and pricing in different regions. And then it took a couple weeks before those things were actually on store shelves. By that point, we were already talking about iPhones. Imagine if they announced the V30. A week later, it was on display in a T-Mobile or a Verizon store. And then the iPhone came out, how the iPhone would have felt derivative of what LG did with their design. The iPhone would have felt like the phone playing catch up. It wouldn't have felt like LG was struggling to keep up with the competition when they were the first company to come out with 2:1 aspect ratio displays, and the V30 helped refine and pretty up what we got with the G6. I think that's one of their biggest problems, is consumers don't pay attention to tech media like tech fans do. So they're not going to wait around for a phone to come out at some point and then hope that it's good. They want to see it. They want to play with it. They want to touch it and poke it and do things with it. And then if they hear about it and they can't do that, then they forget about it.
Okay, so if
come back a month later and try and make up that.
If LG could retcon its reputation, I would much appreciate that. But it can't. And it doesn't have the room to do so, because if they're not reaching the same people as Apple does, just by scale, just by whatever they're able to target. So, and the Apple, like, people have this confirmation bias, or this not necessarily confirmation bias, but just familiarity, or this ecosystem bias, where they're kind of stuck in it, or they think they're stuck in it. It's actually easier than they think to transfer all those files and whatnot between ecosystems.
Well, I mean, ecosystem changes, I think, are actually a pretty big deal for general consumers. I mean, there's a lot of anxiousness and pressure that goes into that. But one of the things that I think is
why, like, there's like the Android migration rate.
I'm not saying actually plugging in the cable, but I mean, it's like, everything that you have to change in moving from one manufacturer to another, not necessarily even ecosystem, does create a little bit of stress. You go to do something on your phone, you don't want to think about navigating the UI. You just want to do that thing on your phone. And there's that momentary confusion, muscle memory confusion of doing it. I don't want to discount that. But what I mean is, Apple has that reputation that you've described. And I think a major reason why is because of the way that they advertise. And I think LG could catch up and change up their their reputation a little bit more aggressively if they put more care and attention into properly releasing a product. Like, don't wait 2 months after you tell us about it before we can see one in a store. That's ludicrous. But then also following the conversation after the phone is launched. Apple doesn't give up on advertising the week after the iPhone goes on sale. They continue to put pressure on the consumer market throughout the year to remind people that their products exist and that their products are premium. And I think if the V30 had that kind of conversation from the manufacturer, consumers would start to build a little bit more faith that the manufacturer, LG, continues to care and support their products.
Well,
whether or not that's even earned, it would be the perception.
I mean, you know, and it hasn't started because they haven't been doing that thing, but that's just getting them to base zero. And from the
right. Yeah, that's just getting them out of the negative.
It hasn't happened. So I'm not like until
well, but they
we could.
Done it. It hasn't helped them because they haven't done it yet. Tell me what is the V30 commercial that you've seen? Tell me one V30 commercial that you've seen.
The hit record thing where it's like everyone's dancing and happy and stuff, and that's it. That's it. People were happy. LG life.
There is one other V30 commercial out there. If you're on YouTube TV, they are paying for an ad buy where people talk anthemically about capturing moments and doing cool things, and it's very hipster and it's very contrasty and it's very sepia toned and
anthemic, like God bless the LG V30.
It is. I mean, like 2-camera, confessional style disclosure of the amazing things they do. And then at the very end, it's just that little LG splash screen with the V30 on. I mean, like, it has nothing to do with the product. You would never associate the product with the commercial, and you instantly forget about the dry, drab, dull tone of the commercial by the time the commercial is over. That is not how you advertise a product. You know, I don't want to say rip off Apple, but learn some lessons from Apple and Samsung as to how they generate an emotional relationship with their customers and see if you can do the same. LG offers something that no other phone does. It is the world's best headphone jack built into a mobile device. And we've never seen a commercial on that. That is an easy 15-second commercial to create around a feature that they can definitively and objectively say is the best on any product that's currently available for consumers to buy.
And I don't think that's a thing that would capture, a ton of audience. But the fact is they haven't tried it yet. So
and we haven't seen them try anything yet aside from this like feel good advertising, this fun, lighthearted advertising, and this anthemic advertising, and none of that works. Jason Statham in a bunch of crazy costumes doesn't work. Try and actually talk about your product. Maybe do that.
They think they are being different by not talking about the product. They're not trying to sell you anything. Right, as opposed to those devils across the street.
So here's the thing. Here's where I'm positive on LG bowing out of the first half of the year. I bet they will have difficulties placing orders with Qualcomm for chipsets. And I think that's one of the things that was a minor stumbling point for the G6, is that it launched with the 821 when we knew newer phones were right around the corner with more powerful processors. So that takes some of the pressure off of LG trying to compete and trying to do, trying to buy up manufacturing lines before, Samsung gets in there and sucks up most of the market. That I think is actually a positive. But if we get to the second half of 2018 and we don't see an LG that's continuing to join the conversation on their products, continuing to better support their products because they don't have a new phone out in the marketplace, I would hope to see better support for their existing phones. I'm still waiting for Oreo announcements and downloads and betas on my V30. That would be nice. Then I think LG's dead in the water in the second half of the year. If we don't see them, the manufacturer, trying to raise its own visibility, they can't expect consumers to just figure out that their products exist.
Well, let's hope that the LG's Jo Seung Jin who issued the direct order to stop the development, apparently, of the G7, has his mind where it should be and not up the bottom of where it shouldn't be.
Oh, well, I'm hoping again. I think there is a potential for them to do something pretty killer, and I think trying to beat the iPhone to its launch, whatever follow up to the iPhone happens at the end of 2018, and then also release the big little combo. What would have been a G7 alongside what would have been a V40, and you just make it the same thing that Samsung does with the Galaxy S8 and a Galaxy S8 Plus. You know, just focus on doing one line of phones in two sizes for all markets, all regions. Don't mess around with some features in some regions and some features in others, and deliver just the most simplified premium experience that they can. That would be a huge step in the right direction for LG. We've got a couple tweets here from the PN Weekly hashtag. A lot of people out there talking about LG. This is from James Vincent, hashtag PN Weekly. LG should keep the G range. It's what we've come to know and recognize. Don't change something that works. They need to market their products better. I never see anything from them when they're launching something new. From Andrew Wallace, also following up some of his previous comments on PN Weekly. Honestly, I don't think LG ever recovered from the boot loop controversy either in terms of consumer mindshare. And I think what would go a long ways towards improving that optics, those optics, would be more regular software updates for their current products. The V20 is woefully under-supported, in my opinion. The V30 is already starting to feel the same. From Renato Laporte, let's be honest, the G6 launched a long time before the S8, and it didn't help. LG was there showing the G6 to the world, and we were all talking about S8 rumors and how fake the fingerprint placement was. So as important as timely launch and availability is, promotion, put some pop-up stores and stands in places, ads, be active on social media, get a deal with Snap and Instagram, and work to make the best Android social media phone camera ever. I don't know, but do something. And lastly, again, from James Vincent, LG don't really seem to care about their products. They never reply to any tweets either. They don't interact with their customers. It's the perception of the brand, I think, is the biggest deal.
Yeah. So LG, life's good, but are they listening good? Yeah.
Are you doing the listening? What good is there to listen with the LG?
LG, listen good. That's their tagline.
I think that's the perfect note to wrap this show up on. Before we jump into my end spiel, I just want to say thanks to all the folks that followed Pocketnow throughout the CES adventures. We've got a ton of videos out there. You can catch, of course, Jaime Rivera, the Pocketnow Daily, for all of the latest news and daily news updates. There you have it, folks. Another episode of the Pocketnow Weekly has come and gone. This show is over, but the conversation continues on Twitter, where Jules is at PointJules, and I'm humbly at Some Gadget Guy. Please send us those tweets using the PN Weekly hashtag, and use that email podcast@pocketnow.com for our monthly wrap-up listener mailbag. We've got some cool questions already. We want to make sure we've got some fun conversations for you guys. And shows like this cannot exist without your support. Sharing the weekly with your friends who love mobile technology, and dropping reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and wherever else podcast reviews can be left, because ultimately there wouldn't be a show if it weren't for our listeners and subscribers who have kept us on the air since 2012. The Pocketnow Weekly will be back next week with all kinds of delicious technology goodness, so make sure you tune back in.